You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 221 of Teach Better Talk. My name is Ray Hewart, and as always, I'm with my incredibly hungry co-host, Mr. Jeffrey Gargis. How are you, Jeff?
I'm hungry.
I know you're hungry.
Well, I'm good. I'm eating some snacks. I'm eating some peanuts to get me through the night. That'll do it.
They're not a snack. Anyway, whatever.
Well, they're a snack. They're not a meal, but I think they definitely fall in the snack category. I don't know. You and Connie both don't think that they were legit, but yeah, I'm hungry, especially after the conversation we had with our guest prior to recording, which is all about food and all the food you guys ate. So definitely feeling more hungry now. But, anyway.
Well, I am excited to get this introduction recorded so that you can go eat before the next few episodes we have tonight, because it is a long night.
Yes, it's a very long night. We've got two more after this, and I'm actually recording a mailbag episode with Joshua Stamper for Aspire afterwards. So I get four podcast episodes tonight.
You are so cool that you hang out with Joshua Stamper. I think he's the coolest guy ever.
I really am just really cool. Like, I'm a really cool person.
Well, I'm sorry. Did I slip up? I just meant that Joshua Stamper is so cool that you being within his specific is like kind of cool.
Association kind of thing. I got you. Yeah. Rubs off a little bit. He is a cool dude. So, yeah. Anyway, so can we talk about something that we've talked about a little bit recently? Because we just kind of announced it and it's pretty cool and pretty excited. And I was good. The Education Blueprint partnership that we've got going on right now. Can we chat about that a little bit?
Yes, okay. I actually just sent an email out to our network talking about two big things we're doing. One is the coaching that I know we talked about in the podcast before. We're not going to talk about that now, the connected coaching. This other big thing, Education Blueprint. Go ahead. What elements do you want to talk about? Because I feel like this solves so many educators' problems. I'm just so excited for people to get involved.
It does. So, like, Education Blueprint in general is is just a great resource to go to no matter what. So educationblueprint.org. You've got lesson plans over there, resources, apps, books, research. Like, you can sort. Think sort of teachers pay teachers, but without the pay part. It's just all free. And when it's stay free, it's nonprofit. What's really cool is that they love the grid method, and they wanted to make that one of the categories, which is grids. And what was awesome about that is it's one of the most common things we get, one of the most common piece of feedback we get from workshops and trainings that we do on the grid method is it would have been really nice if there was like 3 more sample grids about, in this category, or it'd be really great if I could see a couple more elementary level. And we have a lot of example grids that we take, but we don't have like everything covered because that would just be a lot of like papers or documents to send or whatever. And so we've had different ways to store it. There's a lot of them in our Facebook group. If you go to our Facebook group and get in there, there's a lot of them there, but they're not as organized, right? Because it's just Facebook upload. This solves that problem of you can go in there and look by grade level, by subject matter, by Common Core standard if you want, and find grids that align to what you're looking for. And it's just like such a cool piece. And the 3 educators that put this together are awesome. We're super excited to be like connected with them in another way and helping them grow and stuff. You really, I gotta, and I hope you're sitting down if you're listening, but I gotta give Ray some serious props that like you really spearheaded this whole thing with them. And we, Kelly was on the podcast and we were kind of like, oh, and like she mentioned it afterwards, and the two of you just kind of took off with it, and I was just laughing.
How could you not? I mean, okay, Kelly, Nicole, and Laura, we love you. By the way, shout out to you, our Education Blueprint crew. And by the way, you can do all this at educationblueprint.org. But when I was talking to Kelly, they just had these big audacious dreams of wanting to provide all educators, no matter where you teach, no matter what your student population is, really great content. And they're actually studying this topic for their doctoral work. And so as they were looking into just trying to get the best tools in students' hands humanly possible, and not having it based on now teachers putting up their own money, taking money out of their own pocket to support their students. They're like, we want to create a non-for-profit where we just create a sharing platform. And I'm thrilled that they threw grids in there. I'm so glad. The Teach Better team never really planned on being a library of grids. That's not really the work that we want to get into. We don't want to write curriculum specifically. We more so want to support educators in utilizing the tools, the resources, the standards that they've been provided and finding the best way to reach their students with it. And so I've loved that this has been their mission. They have worked, Jeff, you know this, they have worked so hard to build this from literally nothing. And their whole mission is to just provide free content. So essentially, I like that you compare it to Teachers Pay Teachers because it's super similar in the capacity of, as a teacher, you create a free account and you go through and you can search by standard and whatever, but you can also upload your stuff. So like I need to put all my grids into Education Blueprint. And then my other educators around the world, around the country can go in and say, okay, I wonder if, Ray Hewart has a grid on, 6.NS.2, which is a 6th grade math common core standard. So I really love that it has the element of sharing and then connecting and following. I mean, it's that whole same premise, but we need it to be free.
And I think that's a really cool one. Cool feature that I love is the follow feature. So like if I go and maybe I download a couple of your grids, and I'm like, oh, I really like how this Ray puts together her grids. I can follow you. So then I'm able to know when you're uploading more grids. You also create collections. So I can like pocket all my, my science grids here if I teach multiple subjects or save for different variations of grids or whatever it might be. You can do that. You can create collections. You can follow people. I just think I just love that sort of social aspect. You can send messages to the people that shared things as well. So I love that it has that little bit of social aspect that you can get a little more connected with it as well. So, and obviously the fact that it's free is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, free, created by teachers to support teachers. That's really all this is. And so if you're somebody who likes to kind of walk down the hall and see what your counterpart is using, then this is perfect for you. It's just educators sharing the great work they're doing that has been used to support their students. So go check that out, educationblueprint.org. You can read all about Laura and Nicole and Kelly and just enjoy all the fun. And I don't know, it's an honor to be able to partner with them and talk more about the grid method and be able to just continue to flood educators to a program that really does supporting you as a person and trying to make us a little bit better today than we were yesterday and a little bit better tomorrow than we were today.
I love it. So super excited about that partnership and where it's going to go and how we're going to be able to grow together and stuff. So let's talk about this episode. Great episode. Connie Hamilton is an educational consultant and a best-selling author right now. You probably know her from Hacking Questions or possibly from, co-author and Hacking Homework as well. But she's been in education for more than 20 years. She's been a teacher, an instructional coach, a principal, and at the district level office as well. Super fun conversation. Tons of value here, a little bit of laughter throughout the entire thing as well, I think, and some really great advice that I think she lays down in a couple different spots here. So anything you want listeners to take away from this episode, Ray?
I was just such a fan. I think we got into a great conversation when we started talking about advice in question 5. And so I'd really encourage you to keep an eye out for that. It's not necessarily one that I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, take notes. It's really something I want you to stop what you're doing and listen to it and sit with it. I think it was a really great reminder that we all kind of need to hear right now.
And right around that point, we also get into we're giving away a copy of her book as well. So make sure you listen through all the way for that. And with that, let's get in episode 221 with Connie Hamilton.
All right, we'll be right back with that episode, but I do want to make sure that you know that you should be listening to all the podcasts, a part of the Teach Better podcast network. Yes, Teach Better Talk is a fun one, and we really appreciate that you have subscribed and hopefully rated and reviewed this podcast. But we also have other podcasts that we have the opportunity to highlight over in our podcast network. Head over to teachbetter.com/podcast to see the full list.
All right, we are here and we are chatting with Connie Hamilton. Connie, awesome having you on the podcast. We've already been talking for a little while here, laughing, smiling a whole lot. So I'm excited about this this conversation. I think it's going to be a good one. But we're really excited to have you here. Appreciate you taking some time. Before we get too far into learning more about you and your story and everything you're about, how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling full and satisfied because I just had a fantastic dinner.
I know that is what we were talking about, listeners. Like, truly, we were just talking about our dinner stories, and Jeff was like, I haven't eaten dinner yet. And I'm like, Jeff, you played this the wrong way. Go get some food there, buddy.
Yeah, there we go. I should have seen that coming, but I didn't, and I'm sorry for that.
So you walked right into it.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, Connie had this beautiful, delicious meal. I'm currently eating Aldi tortilla chips in sour cream, which is totally my go-to snack, but just don't tell anybody because it makes you fat. And then Jeff said he had peanuts. Like, I don't think that really counts as even a snack, much less a meal, Jeff, just to confirm. I think our listeners would agree.
Good.
Well, that's great, but like a handful of peanuts is not a snack or a meal. I mean, maybe a snack if you're doing some cool, like, hip diet, but that's for sure not a meal.
It's a snack if you're like measuring out everything that you eat throughout the day and you carefully plan to have that at 10:30 a.m. as your mid-morning snack, then peanuts count.
Yes, I agree with that.
I plan to have it at my 6:55 p.m. snack.
Yeah, all right. Jeff, we're going to have you go like take a lunch break or take a dinner break after this episode. But Connie, I do want to get into you sharing kind of like all about you in this episode. Before we get started, I know Jeff gave you a little bit of an introduction, but I want to make sure that our listeners learn about you. And usually we do that by asking you that age-old question of, what do you do, Connie?
Well, I'm an author and a consultant now, and I had a wonderful career as a teacher, an instructional coach. I was an assistant principal, a elementary principal, a middle school principal, and then I ended up at central office in a district role in curriculum. And all along the way, it seems like every job that I had, there were things that I really loved about the job. And then, of course, there were things that you just do because you have to. It's part of the job. And now I feel like I've taken little pieces of every job that I've had and just sort of smashed them all together and formed this new role that I have in education now. So I don't have to do bus duty anymore. I don't have to grade papers at night. I don't have to go to board meetings. So I have kind of let go of all of those things that were just part of the job. And now I just get to spend the majority of my time working directly with teachers and kind of supporting my passion of curriculum and instruction and having a grand old time with it. So I feel very blessed.
I love how you say that you kind of took like the best of all the different jobs you've had and smushed them together. And wow, you've had a lot. I knew you had done a few different roles. Man, you've done a lot of roles. You've had a lot of roles in education, a lot of cool experiences, which gets me excited about, which is always my favorite question, which is when we talk about failure. But the fact you've had so many different roles and so many different viewpoints, so many different and such a wide variety of responsibilities and everything, I'm really excited to hear a story from you on this. So, can you share with us a story of a time that you've had a failure in your life? Can you just kind of take us there with you? What happened? How did you overcome it? And then what did you take away from that experience?
Well, there have been a lot. And honestly, some of the failures, I couldn't use that as an example because they didn't turn around and have a positive effect. I mean, some failures, you just kind of have to learn from it and move on, and you can't make lemonade out of it. It just sort of is what it is, and it's just going to be in your past as a lesson learned. So I think one of those kind of middle ground components is I started my career as an administrator relatively early. I was just under 30 years old when I got my first administrative job. And I was an assistant principal for a couple years, and I felt like I needed to be part of everything. I needed to be not necessarily always leading it, although I did feel like that I needed to kind of take charge and be the supervisor. But the biggest piece of everything that happened is that I felt like I was always tooting my horn when I look back and taking credit for the things that had been done collectively as a group. And I think it's one of the slower things that I learned from. So when we think about some of our failures, sometimes they just really slap you in the face, and there's a moment when you realize that, oh, crud, I just failed. This particular trait of mine lingered for a really long time. And I think that even after I switched from my first administrative job and then I moved on to another school district, I still took that with me for a while. And just still that whole, well, I did this and I was thinking that, and yes, that's what I was thinking, and just always sort of feeling like I don't know who I was trying to prove myself to. Maybe I was trying to prove myself to myself. But along the way, I met someone who did a lot of work for me and then publicly completely gave me 100% of the credit. And I remember thinking, why is he giving me credit? Like, he did way more work than I did. Why isn't he telling people what his role was? And I chewed on that for a really long time. And what I have taken away from it is that little by little, it's a great way to build trust and rapport and elevate other people, to take a back seat. So I know exactly what role that he had in the project that we were doing together, but only he and I know that he's the one who stepped aside and allowed me to be in the limelight. And so it really caused me to give him a lot of respect. And I guess I should probably tell him that this is something that I learned from him, because I don't even think that he knows. But I'll tell you what, it's so rewarding to sit back and give other people credit. And you can see on the look on their face that they're like, wow, they really recognize the work that I did. And then they also can see that you're stepping down in order to let them step up. And as a leader, there's really nothing more important that we can do than to elevate the people around us, because when times are tough, we all need to be in this together. And a lot of schools are discovering that right now in this pandemic, that we need everybody's brain. There is no playbook for how to maneuver through what we are living right now. And if you feel like you have to fly solo, you're going to be flying solo. And that's not a way to be successful.
I love that story, and the touch on how that, when you step aside and you raise other people up like that and you give them credit where is due, and even more so, and just really highlight that, you build that trust. And I think what it really does is it shows them that you are really in it with them. It's not about you. It's about the team. It's about accomplishing the goal. And I think that's right. At a time like this, we need those types of relationships and that type of trust to get through what everyone's going through right now. So I love that story. Let's flip it around. Let's talk about a success you had. And this can be something big or something small, but tell us what happened. Why was it a successful moment for you? And then what'd you take away from that experience?
Well, as I sort of mentioned in the beginning, I took little pieces of every career or job that I had and used that then to kind of create my next step. And one of the things that I did as a teacher and as an administrator is I would do short little presentations here and there. And oftentimes I would lead professional development that was internal. And when I was a curriculum director, I almost exclusively led the PD because we couldn't afford to buy anybody. And so I had a lot of experience just kind of learning from others and then morphing that into how does that relate to what we're doing in our school district. And, I would often say, boy, I should write a book. And sometimes I'd say it under my breath. Sometimes I'd say it, sort of tongue in cheek. And then finally I kind of hunkered down and thought, I should really kind of quit joking about this and maybe actually do it. And so I did. And the first book that I wanted to write is actually the second book that I wrote. I wanted to write Hacking Questions, and I pitched it to Mark Barnes, who is our publisher, and he said no. the first time. He said, no, that's overdone. A lot of people have done questioning already, and there are plenty of people out there. And so I wrote hacking homework with Star Saxteen. And then after that, he got to know me a little bit and some of the work that we had. And so I pitched it again. And second time's a charm, I suppose. So that was something that, I didn't give up. It's something that I really wanted to do. And I made it happen. And that's something I'm really proud of, that hacking questions book.
It's absolutely something you should be proud of. I'm so glad you picked that as your success. It's a huge one, especially book number 2. That's awesome. So obviously, geez, with the roles that you've had, with the focuses on your book, I'm so confident that there are a lot of things that keep you excited about the work that you're doing, excited about education and all the pieces in between. But if you had to kind of choose, what's really keeping you most excited right now, kind of fueling your fire in the work that you're doing?
Well, one of the things I always strive to do is to, you want to make things that are relevant. It's, as we're sharing, you get the age-old blood-borne pathogens kind of thing. There are humdrum, boring things that we have in our field. And right now I feel like so many people are in survival mode. It's like, how do I run Zoom? And what am I going to do about grading? And how am I going to connect with parents? And just surviving from day to day. And I think one of the things that is super exciting is that so much asynchronous learning and the emphasis of students learning at home has elevated for me, even more so than before, this need for students to be metacognitive and to be their own coach in their own in their own ear. So we want students to be able to ask those self-reflective questions instead of relying always on the teacher to ask prompting and supporting questions. And so that's something that I've really been dusting off a little bit and digging into a little bit more of what are some of the ways that we can help students to be metacognitive, to be self-reflective as they're working independently at home or even in the class for those schools who are face-to-face right now. So it's super exciting to not only to leverage the power to students to be able to do that, but also to help teachers to let go a little bit and take a little bit of the weight off of their shoulders to say, let's take a break from really focusing so much on that content in a really heavy way. And let's bring in just a touch of, how do you know you're learning it? How do you know if it's good enough? How are you going to self-reflect? How are you going to ever use this? How are you going to make sure that you remember? How are you going to identify the gaps that you have? And when you do, what are you going to do about it? All of those kinds of questions are transferable for life. And quite frankly, I can't remember a whole lot of what I learned in 5th grade, but I do know that I use the skills to help me to learn something new every stinking day. And if I didn't know how to learn and I didn't know how to find my gaps, then I would be in a lot of trouble right now. So helping students become, not to coin that sort of big buzzword that's in every stinking school district's mission statement, but really, truly living the goal of making students to be lifelong learners.
I love that you chose that as your excitement and the way that you shared that. I think that your passion for questioning students, your passion for wanting students to truly focus on their understanding levels and being just good people, good learners, made that answer just so perfectly shared. I thought that was wonderful.
Thank you.
I know this is dorky because now I'm going to ask you for a piece of advice. And to be honest, I feel like that was a piece of advice in and of itself. But question 5 always focuses on choosing that much needed kind of one piece of advice, whether it be a new teacher or a veteran teacher, just anyone listening who's looking for a piece of advice to either start their morning or kind of conclude their day. What would be a piece of advice that you would like to share with our listeners?
Well, in thinking about kind of that people who are new to our profession, I feel like it gets overwhelming. And today, almost everybody feels like a first year teacher because there are so many brand new things that we have never experienced before. And so I guess my advice is to not look to the future in the hopes that things are going to be easier and that you're going to be able to skate through this career of education, because it never does. And you may get comfortable with one portion of your job and be able to really wrap your arms around a specific component. But in order for us to always be our best for students, then once we wrap our heads around a single piece of our role, then it opens the door for us to tackle another aspect of our teaching or of our leading so that we can continue to grow and be that much better for the students that we're going to have tomorrow as well. So I know that it's really common to say to first year teachers, like, don't worry, it gets better. It does get better in the things that you're worried about right now. Like, you don't always get nervous for parent-teacher conferences that eventually will go away. But how you handle difficult conversations is maybe something that's going to pop up in a few years when you're really faced with a challenging conversation. So we're always learning, just like our students are. And in this profession, we're always going to give 110% and be very busy and dedicated to our kids.
Wait, I love that. Like, it doesn't get easier, just like a different kind of busy. Like, that's like so spot on and so true. I think Jeff and I have talked about that numerous times just as we've been friends. Jeff, how long have we been friends? Like 3 years-ish, a little over 3 years?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years too long, I think, at this point.
Stop it.
That's so not nice.
That's so not nice. He's the meanest to me. But the reason I'm saying that, Connie, is because every single year, there's a moment where I'm like, Jeff, I'm so busy. Everything's so challenging. And then the following year, things are like double busy and double and they're challenging. And I'm like, oh no, I got it. Because you just kind of learn to go with the flow. You learn to like kind of grow your capacity in handling tough situations because you've seen so much success from them. And I just feel like everyone just kind of grows in their ability to, like, not so much that things get easier, but you just like learn to manage things better as you learn the pros and cons of every single situation. I think that's so great.
Yeah, I think it's just sort of something that goes along with the job, like, like an ER doctor. It's just the way our job is. So, we're not going to be, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a laid back, kick back job. What would that even be? I don't even know.
No, but your analogy of like an ER doctor, right? So like somebody's going to come in with a cut every single year, but you might handle it differently every single year because you're learning. And so it's that same mindset. You're not just doing the same thing every day.
Right. Look at what ER doctors are facing today.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's every year of experience gets you ready for that next time is big. Ray, when you talk about, we have had that conversation a bunch of times, and we look back, we're like, how do we think we were busy last year, right? Because this year's so much crazier. And we're like, yeah, but at the time it was capacity, right? But that hitting that capacity or hitting that level and having to, whether you call it scramble and survive, whatever, but having to go there and push yourself to that point is what prepares you for now the next time it gets harder. And I think that's why it continues to be, it doesn't necessarily get easier. It's just a different kind, right? And I think that's a really great way that you laid that, because you're going to be prepared for it because you're learning and you're growing and stuff like that. But don't expect, like, I like how you said, like, don't expect it to get like super laid back and easy. Like, that's just not, it's just not what it's gonna do. That's not.
It's like
how it
parenting,
works.
like you bring home an infant. You bring home an infant and you're like, oh my gosh, wait till they can go to the bathroom on their own. My life will be so much better. And then you're dealing with, well, we have to get the kids to this place and that place, and somebody has practice and somebody's got to be picked up, and you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And then you think, oh, when they can drive, it'll just be better. It's just always kind of looking for it will get better, but then it's just replaced with something else that keeps you going.
No, it's totally true. I mean, I'm just even thinking of people who go into the field as first year teachers and they think like teaching becomes your life, right? You become a teacher like 24/7. You work ridiculous hours. And then fast forward a few years, you have children and you're still able to manage everything. It's like, guys, we can do this. We just need a little bit of time to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. There definitely are moments that, you do feel like, okay, I'm at my max here. I'm actually over my max. But I do think that we as educators have a much higher max than the average person.
Very true. Let's talk about real quick, because you're super awesome. So we're going to give away a copy of your book, Hacking Questions. But before we do that, can you give us like the quick rundown of what's the book about, who's it for, and then we're going to go into how you can win a copy of the book.
Sure. The book is essentially, it's mostly written for teachers. That's the target audience. No specific grade level because everybody asks questions. And it's really about the art of questioning as a verb. So it's about how to deliver questions and how to engage students in questions, how to reduce how to increase the level of risk that students are willing to take in their questions. What do you do when kids say, I don't know? How can you get students asking more questions, etc.? And every chapter kind of focuses on a different component. What it isn't is here's step-by-step directions on how to write the perfect question. It isn't about the noun of the question itself. So it's really practical. It takes things that we do already in the classroom and offers a way that you could just modify it to get a bigger bang for your buck. So it is intended, there's a part in every chapter that is what you can do tomorrow. And I was really mindful when I wrote those sections of each chapter to be certain that everything that I suggested is something that doesn't require money. You don't have to adopt anything. You don't have to get permission. There's no planning involved. They literally are things that you can do right away tomorrow to get a better impact on your questioning.
Oh, I love it. All right. So I have an idea for giving it away. You need to tweet at Teach Better Team and at Connie Hamilton, and then hashtag Teach Better, hashtag Teach Better Talk, so we make sure we see that. And here's what I'd like to have you do is I want you to answer this question is, what can you do tomorrow to ask better questions? How's that sound, Connie? Does that work?
I love it. Yes.
So ask that, and we'll see. And then, hey, maybe some of those things are in the book. Maybe they aren't. Then we're going to pick someone and get a copy of that book. So appreciate you doing that. That's awesome. I know everyone always enjoys that. So really appreciate you doing that. Let's have some more fun here. We're going to do these next 6 questions. And your goal, Connie, is to answer each one in 15 seconds or less. So you ready to go?
Yeah. Ready, set, go.
All right. What is one EdTech tool you cannot live without?
Today, Zoom. Last year, Google Calendar.
Give us a book you're in right now.
I am listening to on Audible, How to Be an Antiracist by Kendi. And I am also in a book club with a book by Floyd Cobb and John Krownapple called Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity. I'm also just finished previewing a book by Julie Stern, but I'm not really sure if I can share the title or not. So,
we'll just have to wait on that one then.
Yep.
Who do we need to follow on Twitter or Instagram today? You can give us up to 3.
My number one, I'm just going to say, if you're not already following Jen Gonzalez, Cult of Pedagogy, amazing. I wrote a blog post for her, and the process that she uses, like, she owns everything that is printed on her blog. She is highly involved in every word.
What is a good YouTube channel, website, or podcast for educators to check out?
A new YouTube channel that I'm really enjoying is Small Bites with Hedreich Nichols. And she just gives like 5, 10, she at the end of her little session, she'll say, if you have 2 minutes, do this. If you have 5 minutes, do this. And she gives you choices based on how much time you have.
Yes, I love Hedreich. She's awesome. She's such a cool person. Give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine every teacher should get into.
I think you should pay attention to the very last thing you do before you go to sleep. It shouldn't be look at your phone. So just be really mindful of how you spend those last 60 seconds before you close your eyes. If you have to be on your phone, then at least shift to something like gratitude or just some peaceful meditation or something so that you get in the right frame of mind before you fall asleep.
And what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
When people are unkind to you, my mom used to always say, kill them with kindness. And I don't know that I really understood that, but now it almost kind of makes me chuckle, because people who are unkind to you don't know how to respond when you don't treat them the same way that they're treating you.
I love that one.
Oh my gosh, that is literally the tweet I just sent out, Jeff. Did you see what I tweeted today about kindness?
No, did you just
tag you in it? Oh my God, Connie, we are like meant to be friends. I just want you to know that this is the start of something spooky, because I just shared a tweet earlier today of a quote that I saw that it was like, be nice, it freaks people out. Like, it drives people crazy. And my tweet was like, the Teach Better family has been driving people crazy for a long time.
And who knew it all started with unfrosted Pop-Tarts?
Right, who knew? We just need to get some frosted Pop-Tarts. It'll be fine.
Oh, I love it.
Oh my God, Connie, you're so funny. So before our podcast ends, I do want to make sure that all of our listeners connect with you, Connie, obviously with the books that you've published and everything else you just continue to push out to support educators. Where can they stay connected?
Lots of options depending on what your preference is. So I have a website, conniehamilton.org. Twitter is always a great place. It's at Connie Hamilton. And those are probably the two easiest ways to touch base with me. If you go to the website, you can easily email me as well.
All right. You can find all the links, all the resources, and everything we mentioned over in this episode over at teachbetter.com, as well as the really important links for connecting with Connie and keeping the conversation going. So make sure you check out the show notes at teachbetter.com for all of that. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. And if you can give us a rating and review, we'd really appreciate that as well. Let's keep taking this one step further. Think of just 3 of your colleagues who need to hear these amazing stories and connect with these amazing educators, and share this podcast with them. Connie, this was awesome. We had a blast. There was so much laughter and fun in this episode, and so much value as well. Super excited for people to listen and hopefully reach out and connect with you and continue that conversation with you. Really appreciate you taking some time and hanging out with us. Thank you.
Thanks. It was a riot. Had a lot of fun.
Until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.